Hey everybody, welcome back. Today I'm going to be doing my product review for the all-new Ninja Slushi. Does this thing deserve a spot on your kitchen countertop? Watch this video and find out. So you ready? Let's get into this. Just a quick note, my reviews are based upon the things that I think are important. That might be a little bit different for you, so what I recommend doing is after watching this video, you watch a couple of other videos made by different content creators. That way you'll get a wider range of opinions that will result in a much more informed buying decision, and that is the most important thing of all. This is the Ninja Slushi. What this machine is primarily used for is, you guessed it, slushies. However, it's not just that, you got several different presets here. You've got the regular slushies, which is similar to something like an Icy or a 7-Eleven Slurpee. You've got spiked slushies, which really, if you're talking about frozen margaritas and daiquiris and stuff like that, that's kind of where they're aiming at with that. Right here we have a preset for Frappe or Frappe or however the heck you want to say it, I don't care. In any case, if you ever had a Frappuccino from Starbucks or Dutch Brothers or Coffee Bean or any of those places, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Frozen blended coffee, that's the preset for it. Down below we have milkshakes, which are for milkshakes, duh. And down below is a setting for frozen juice. You can take any kind of high sugar fruit juice like cranberry juice, orange juice, apple juice, and you can use this preset and it'll make it into kind of a thick slushy. On the right side over here, once you've selected one of these, I'll select the slushy just to get this started. Then you'll see these three bars right here. This is the default for that particular preset on the freeze level. That goes all the way down from level 1 all the way up to the top here. Once the machine reaches whatever temperature that's set to, it'll hold the temperature there and keep it there for up to 12 hours. Keep in mind, if you do that and want to keep it there, the machine has to keep running just like this for that entire time. The good thing about that is this is probably the quietest Ninja machine I've ever seen because it runs right about 65 decibels. The thing about the Ninja Slushi is that it has a condenser right here in the machine. So you just put your liquids in there and it does all of the freezing and everything for you. So if you have something like a Ninja Creami or a blender and you want to make a slushie, as far as the blender goes, you're mixing ice in there and blending it up. As far as the Creami goes, you're having to let the stuff freeze overnight. In this case, you just put the liquids in there, push the button, walk away, and in about 45 minutes, you got your slush. Ninja says that everything you put in this machine should take someplace between 15 minutes and an hour to get the results that you want. In our testing, it seemed like it was more something like 20 minutes to 42 minutes. So either way, not bad at all. Like I said before, the machine is very quiet. It only hits about 65 decibels when running. And for people that want to know about the power, I live in the US, so this is going to be a 120 volt machine. As far as my particular machine goes, it uses 200 watts of power and 1.7 amps. As far as looks go, it's really nice. To me, this is probably one of the nicest machines that Ninja has ever made. I think the thing is absolutely beautiful. I like all the colors, especially this blue in here. In case you can't tell, I like blue. Another cool feature about this is that the drip plate right here has a little docking station right here on the side of the machine. I really think that's pretty cool. It gets it out of the way and you don't have to use drawer space for it. However, that's where my first criticism of this machine has. I like how it fits on here, that's really cool, that's not what I'm complaining about. However, the drip tray has this removable piece on the top, but when this is in here, it just sort of sets in there. There's nothing holding this in, there's not really any friction either holding it in there, so it really can just flop around. Normally, you wouldn't really care about that because, you know, gravity is going to keep it down, but when you have this stowed on the side of the machine like this, see that? That sucks. This is dumb because there's been a couple of times now where I've walked into the kitchen, this thing is sitting on the counter, and this had fallen off and rolled right off the countertop just like that. That would really suck if I broke that, wouldn't it? Oh, stay in there. But right there you can see that all you had to do was make a little plastic nub formed right into this like every other freaking product on planet Earth, and it would have just stayed in there and that would have been a non-issue. So to me, I don't know how that got overlooked. You could have even put a rubber seal around this or something, or a couple of rubber nubs in here. There's so many things they could have done to make that not do that. that, I mean, there's at least 10 different ways to fix that. In fact, I might even just put a little bit of tape on the outside of this just to make it a little bit thicker so it has a little bit more friction and it doesn't pop out, because that irritates the hell out of me. Moving right along, as far as size goes, we're talking about a machine that is right about 6 inches wide. However, on the one side, we got this thing right here. Again, hold on. Stay in there. That is about 1 inch wide. So really, you're talking about 7 inches wide on the machine if you take that into account. As far as depth goes, we're looking at about 13 inches from the back to the front of the machine. But you got to keep in mind, we have this handle here too. So that brings it up to just under 17 inches deep, 16 3/4, something like that. And as far as height goes, this machine is designed to fit underneath your upper cabinets, so that means it has to be shorter than 18 inches, since that is kind of the standard height, at least in the United States, for upper cabinet height. And this comes in at 16 1/2. Probably that would squeeze it in there. 16 3/4 would be a little bit more comfortable. But in any case, 18 inches is a lot higher than that. So that's looking good. As far as parts and disassembly of the machine goes, there's really not a whole lot to it. You've got this guy over here, which we already talked about. With that crappy thing there, we'll put that aside. The front portion of the spigot comes off, and that's just held on there with a couple of plastic nubs. Hey, look, huh? Anyway, that redirects everything coming out of the spigot over here down through the chute, and that will keep down on messes. From there, we have our main container up top, and the way to get this off is you just pull this lever over here towards you all the way, and it disengages it, and then the entire thing slides off forward. On this, you have the handle permanently attached, and when you pull the lever, you can see that it's spring loaded, and it just opens the floodgates down there at the bottom. That's why you have that other part to redirect the flow, because without that, you'd have a serious mess on your hands. This is permanently connected to this tub, so luckily it's easy to clean, because if it wasn't, you'd have serious problems. However, if you manage to break this handle off, because you can see that it has metal pins here going into a plastic casing, that could be a disaster, because if you develop a crack on this from all this pressure over time, then you're going to be replacing this entire piece. Up on top, there's a lid that just kind of flips open, and this is how you get all your stuff in there. If you look close, it just kind of slides down this way, and there's a little slit on this side for everything to come down and flow into the main chamber in. So when you're making stuff with this machine, everything has to be liquids or small enough to go through there. You don't want anything chunky or any frozen bits of anything. Nothing like that can go in the machine. If you're talking about your sweetener, you can put that in there and then dilute it down with some liquid on top of it. But I found that it is a much better idea just to stir that into some of the liquids that are going in already and then pour it in, and that way it's a lot easier to clean up. Next piece is the auger. This is the thing that does all the mixing. This is just plastic and it slides right off just like that. Pretty sturdy, but once again, it's plastic. That's not going to be a problem because you're not going to be putting anything in there that can hurt this. And consistency on the product coming out of this machine is not meant to be super hard anyway. So that's not really a problem at all, at least none that I can see. That's just kind of one of those things where time will tell. If you look at the machine here, this is the condenser. This is the part that gets cold. And really all this is doing is rotating stuff around this thing getting really cold over and over and over again, and then that's how it freezes. Not really rocket science or anything. And the only other part that we can remove from the machine is right here. And this is the condensation tray. So as you're using this, you can get condensation buildup on the outside of the plastic and the bottom. This will pick up any drips that show up down at the bottom, and that will help keep any moisture from getting inside the machine. That's really all of the pieces of the machine, since the base is just the base and you can't really take anything else off of it. Which leads me into my next point, which is the Ninja Slushi is the easiest to clean thing that Ninja Kitchen has ever made. I thought the Ninja Sizzle was really easy to clean, but this thing takes the cake. The machine has a rinse function down here, and if you turn that on, it will turn the auger around without actually turning on the condenser. That way you just fill a pitcher with warm water, pour that in the machine, empty it back out right away, and it'll clean most of the sticky stuff right out of the machine. Then you can just wash all your parts in the sink, and each one of them is shaped in such a way that it's really easy to get inside and clean. Especially the pitcher, because it's got a big massive hole in the back, and I can fit my entire arm up to my elbow into this thing without really having too much trouble. All the pieces clean up really easy, and for me, washing, drying, and putting all the parts back together takes something like 5 minutes tops to do the entire thing. That's not really bad at all, and if you're keeping on top of your machine and keeping it clean, you're really not going to have any problems with it, and you're not going to have anything sticking to it either. Ninja says that all the removable parts are dishwasher safe. And if you've watched any of my other videos, you know that I'm a big proponent of not putting plastic things into a dishwasher. The main reason being is when you have the heated drying cycle on your dishwasher, it has a tendency to cloud up plastic over a long period of time. If you hand wash everything, it's always going to stay nice and clear, just like it is right now on the machine. Also, those heated drying cycles will tend to heat up all of the little metal bits, and that can actually wear these holes out a little bit, and it'll eventually cause the plastic here to get dry and brittle. If that happens, you'll get cracking and stuff like that. That's over a long period of time, and depending on how much you use your machine, that could take a couple of years for that to happen. So really, it's up to you. I personally would rather just hand wash everything because it only takes a few minutes and you really do get better results. To test the Ninja Slushi, I made 3 different things. First, I made some tart cherry frozen lemonade. If you've ever had frozen lemonade from a theme park like Disneyland or Six Flags or someplace like that, you'll know that frozen lemonade is so freaking good. Most of the time when you go to gas stations and convenience stores, they don't really have anything like that in their slushy machines. It's always like frozen Coke or just cherry or Mountain Dew type things or whatever. The resulting lemonade that I got out of this machine was absolutely fantastic. The mix was perfect, the flavor was great, and the texture was awesome. Keep in mind you can customize the texture on any one of these things by changing the freeze level, but I was able to get it exactly the way I wanted, and that's something I could drink every day, to be totally honest. The next thing I tried to do was recreate an orange Julius. If you don't know what that is, if you've ever been to a mall in the mid 80s or early 90s, they had those orange Julius shops right next to hot dog on a stick most of the time. That drink is kind of a vanilla flavored orange slushy. If you've ever had a creamsicle, it's really close to that, but not quite. It's got really unique flavor to it. In fact, it's really hard to call it a real slushy because unlike 7-Eleven Slurpees or Ices or anything like that, it really does tend to be a little bit on the runny side, which is by design, and it tends to have a little bit of a froth on top as well. The result out of the Ninja Slushi was really, really great too. I managed to get the flavor dead on. I wasn't able to get the froth the way I wanted to, but surprisingly enough, I did get a little bit on top. As far as the texture goes, it wasn't quite perfect, but it was still really, really good. If you want to see what an orange Julius tastes like, you can go down to Dairy Queen and get one nowadays because they did buy that chain out and it's on their menu. For my third test, I made a salted caramel frappuccino. This was by far the best thing that I managed to get out of this machine. It tasted really, really great. The flavor was on point, and it was probably better than any Frappuccino I've ever gotten from Starbucks or Coffee Bean or even Dutch Brothers. By using the freeze levels, I was really able to play around with how thick I wanted it to come out, and I managed to get it a little bit thicker than you get out of those shops. In fact, those places have to use a blender in order to give you a Frappuccino, so it tends to separate quite a bit in your cup. With something like this, the consistency tends to stay really, really good the entire time you're drinking it. So for me, it's got better flavor and texture than any of those stores. Now here's where we get to the big major concern with this machine, and it's something that's gonna turn a lot of people off. That is the fact that this machine cannot make a slushie with 0 sugar. The reason being is that sugar substitutes like monk fruit sweetener, allulose, xylitol, erythritol, all that stuff, none of it is going to have the effect on the liquid that sugar does. By sugar, we're talking about granulated sugar, honey, maple syrup, anything that's got actual real sugar in it. Even things like fruit juices have natural sugar, that's perfectly fine as well. If you don't have enough of that stuff in there, the machine will actually give you a hard time and it'll stop and start blinking at you. So if you're a diabetic and you can have sugar, or you're somebody who just refuses to eat sugar, which is actually kind of the camp that I'm in personally, then you really have to think long and hard about whether you want to buy a machine like this, because it's not going to suit your needs. So I decided, instead of just taking Ninja's word for it, I'm going to try to do a couple of things in this machine that people in the comments section of the unboxing video have asked about. And you and I are going to find out at the same time exactly how this stuff came out. First, we already know this thing can make milkshakes, but if we increase the freeze level all the way to the top, are we going to be able to make soft serve ice cream? And if we can make soft serve ice cream, is it actually going to come out of here? Two questions there, so that'll be the first test. And then the second test we're going to do is we're going to try to make a slushie with Coke Zero. Remember, that has no sugar in it, only sugar substitutes, and we're going to find out what happens if you try to make that in this machine. And if it can't do it, I'm going to see how much sugar I really have to add to it in order to make it work. Hey, by the way, if this is your first time here and you want to learn some cool new recipes, get some great cooking tips and tricks and all sorts of other kitchen related things, then start now by subscribing to the channel and clicking the notification bell so you never miss a thing. Okay, so first we're going to make a milkshake, and then we're going to try to convert it into ice cream. So I'm going to take a little bit of half and half here. And that's just to get the fat up a little bit, because this is 1% chocolate milk and I really want it to have a higher fat content because ice cream typically does. And we want to give this every chance we can to succeed, right? We'll close this up, turn on the machine, and we will set it to milkshake. Now I'm just going to wait for this to make our milkshake. I'll show you the consistency and then we'll try to move on to ice cream. Okay, our milkshakes are done. Let's see how this looks. You can see how thick this is coming out already. This is just on the milkshake setting. I mean, this is a really, really good looking milkshake. Look at the consistency. It's really good, nice and thick. But you saw how it was coming out of the machine there. It was just barely getting out. Kind of has the consistency of like a McDonald's milkshake, if that helps. Can't stop eating this. Anyway, let's crank the freeze level up to the maximum on this and see what happens. If we got any chance of getting soft serve ice cream out of this, it's going to be by doing that. One thing to note is you can see how full this machine is. It's pretty much completely full. This container can hold 88 ounces, but if you look at the max fill line here, that's 64 ounces. Even though this thing holds more, you never want to fill it past this, because whatever you put in here is going to expand as it freezes, and if you fill it anywhere past 64 ounces, it's going to expand too much and you're going to end up with it coming out of the top here. Either that or you're just going to break your machine. But just to give you a frame of reference, I put the milk mixture right at the 64 ounce mark, and I did have to pour a little bit of it out because it was getting too thick. Now we can wait on this ice cream if we get ice cream. Okay, so I tried to crank the freeze level on this up to the maximum a couple of times, and it'll go for a little while and then it won't anymore. So it might just not be able to do that. So what we're going to do is maybe I'm going to change it to the Frappe setting and then push it up again and see how that works. All right, after changing it to the Frappe setting and trying to crank it up again, you can see that it's still only letting us freeze it this far. Let's see if that made any difference. It's a little bit thicker, looks like. But if we're talking about trying to get soft serve ice cream out of this, I mean, it's not really terrible, but that's definitely not quite a soft serve ice cream consistency. It's still pretty milkshakey, but it does look like this is about as thick as our machine is going to be able to make our chocolate milk. So if you're trying to do ice cream in this, it's looking like the machine just can't quite get it cold enough for that. It makes a lot of sense though, because you saw how thick that was coming out. If it was any thicker than this, I doubt it would come out of the machine anyway. Alright, now that we tried that, we're going to try to make some frozen Coke, but we're going to use Coke Zero. According to Ninja, this won't work because there's not real sugar in it, but since so many people asked about it in the unboxing video, we're going to try to do it right now. This might make me cry because I really hate wasting my Coke Zero. But anything for science, right? Or I should say, anything for YouTube views. We're gonna put 3 of these in here. Or actually 2.5, because I'm gonna drink half of one of these. So at least they don't all get wasted, right? Okay, so we'll close that up and turn this on, and we will do slush. All right, let's see how this works. Okay, if you're looking close at this, you can see the only thing happening here is, since there's no sugar in this, everything is just building up on the condenser and it's just freezing. And you can see it's starting to bend the condenser around, and also the auger too. So, oh, right there you can see it stopped. And you can tell by the blinking lights here that this is the low sugar warning. This is telling me that I need to add some sugar or it's not gonna go. This is the safety mechanism on the machine, and it's gonna keep doing this to me unless I add some sugar. So what I'm gonna try to do here is fix this and get it to work by adding some regular cherry Dr. Pepper in here. Yeah, I know that's a weird combination, but we're gonna find out just how much of this has to go in here in order to get this to work. So this has 42 grams of sugar in it. So let's see if about half of the can will fix that. Okay, round 2. Okay, it looks like the machine is crying at me once again, except off camera I ended up having to add more Dr. Pepper to this. So right now I'm at a 2-to-1 ratio of diet soda to regular soda. So I guess now we have to add even more regular soda to this. So I got 2.5 diet sodas in here, and now I'm gonna have 2 entire cans of Dr. Pepper in here too. So this whole thing has 84 grams of sugar in this right now. Granted, it's a big container and it has a lot of servings, but it's still 84 grams. So let's see how this works now, if it'll do it. All right, after a few minutes, it stopped again and it's giving me the low sugar warning again. And this time we're just about at a 1-to-1 ratio between regular and diet soda. At this point, I think we're dealing with diminishing returns here, because if we're gonna do any higher ratio of regular to diet soda, then it's really not even worth doing it anymore, because we're going to be almost regular soda at this point anyway, so you might as well just use the regular stuff. Anyway, if you want to do Coke floats but you want to have diet soda only, think again, because you're not going to be able to pull that off in this thing. At least not to the point where it's really even worth doing.
I am very disappointed!
The Slushie is a really interesting machine, and I was wondering when Ninja Kitchen was going to get around to doing something like this. For the most part, I think it's a really great product unless you're somebody who has a real serious problem with sugar. I, for one, like to keep the sugar down to the absolute minimum, and although you can kind of get around that with a lot of recipes with this, there are a few things where you're stuck with the sugar and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. However, I don't really hold that against Ninja. It's not a problem with the machine, it's more of a chemistry thing. In any case, if the sugar's not a problem and you can handle the price tag, the machine is pretty darn cool. If you'd like a little bit more information about the Ninja Slushie, I do have an Amazon affiliate link to it down in the description of the video. If you buy anything through those links, I do make a small commission, but it doesn't change the price that you pay, 1 cent. If you like this video, you might want to check out this review right here for the Ninja Creami Deluxe. If you don't know already, that's a home ice cream machine that's modeled directly off of the Paco Jet. The biggest difference being is the Paco Jet's about $7,000 and the Ninja Creami is about $200. Well, that's it for now. I hope to see you back again here really soon, and until that time, I'm Joe, and I hope you have a phenomenal day. Take it easy.